Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and I wanted to make a quick couple of remarks about something that I saw today. My colleague Roland Martin did an interview with Geraldo Rivera. Just so you know, Roland, I've known Roland for about maybe 7, 8 years, something like that, and I think Roland is a very good journalist. I think he's a great journalist and a great host. I think TV One's very lucky to have him, and I'm really glad that he had this conversation with Geraldo. I don't feel the same way about Geraldo. I don't think that Geraldo is a good anything. But anyway, the conversation was interesting because it was all about hip hop. And as you know, I've had a lot of things to say about hip hop over the years in terms of what hip hop does and does not bring to the black community. I think that we have to really think about hip hop in terms of not just a collective, but we have to think about the strands of hip hop. Geraldo basically said that over the last 10 years, he thinks that hip hop has done worse to the black community than racism, which I think it's an interesting statement. It's obviously not true, but it's one that requires a little bit of thought. Now, the first thought that comes to mind is number one. I think when we all think about hip hop, we have to make sure we distinguish the strands of hip hop. There is true hip hop, the real hip hop that started in the South Bronx. It has nothing to do with the garbage you hear on the radio today. It was something that was designed to empower black people, to also help black people have a good time at a party. You could, the hip to the hop to the whatever. You had DJs rapping and whatever that, in a way that was bringing people together in a situation that was peaceful and happy, productive, loving, etc. When there were problems in the community, and many of these were forgotten communities, particularly like the South Bronx, which was completely abandoned economically, where this beautiful art form came out, and it emerged and became popular and successful, which means that at that point, capitalist corporations are going to come along and try to make money from it. So then hip hop goes mainstream, and then it gets flipped over into gangster rap. Now, how that happened exactly, I don't know. I've heard all kinds of theories about whether or not it was deliberately switched over and stuff like that, and I don't doubt those theories. I mean, I do know that there was a deep concern by the federal government about the idea of black people receiving messages that were consistently empowering, unifying, that were assertive, that would lead us to fight for our political rights. And because that's what we had in the 60s. You had people like James Brown saying, I'm black and I'm proud. But then for some reason in the 70s and 80s, suddenly you've got drugs and guns, no jobs, no education. And then this music that it suddenly became super popular, and everybody was kind of looking around like, what's going on? What happened to music that made me feel good, music that made me want to go vote, that made me fight the power, like Public Enemy said, or You Must Learn, like KRS-One said. Why is it that KRS-One and Public Enemy are pushed out, but yet people are exalting and elevating the gangster rappers? And to this day, you've got the guys like the Young Thugs and others who literally are mental illness on display. I mean, when you see brothers out here with the pants hanging down to the ass, carrying the gun, talking about I'm gonna go kill another black man, tattoos on your face, that's mental illness. I mean, that is a person who has been through a lot. That's also a person who has been taught to glorify the very worst of who they are. That is a person who unfortunately has been taught to really embrace the spiritual darkness that can consume us when we are victims of an oppressive and abusive society. So I don't blame Young Thug or some of these other ignorant rappers out here for being who they are per se. They do have a choice, but at the same time, they don't know who they are. Some of them are just so young that they just think that this is normal. But I look at our society and I say, all of this was made in America. This was made in America. And this gets us back to Geraldo. Now, here's the thing. Roland and Geraldo had a nice spirited debate where they were fighting back and forth, and that's what I expected. I mean, Roland's a fighter. He's not going to back down. Geraldo's full of crap. He loves to pick fights just so he can get ratings, and God bless him. But here's the thing. I didn't necessarily feel comfortable with the idea of Roland feeling that he had to defend hip hop in its entirety. I don't think that's necessary. I think that you can defend the core of hip hop, but there's nothing to defend. I mean, when you really look at the roots of hip hop in terms of what it was when it came from black people, there's not much there that seeks to oppress black people. I think that if you remember, just 20 years ago, when Queen Latifah was big as a rapper, she had songs like UNITY, where she was like, "Who you calling a bitch?" She was saying, "It's unbelievable. You're not gonna call me a bitch. I'm not gonna let you call me a bitch." But how do you flip from that to now having music where every other woman is a bitch and a hoe? I mean, understand that this did not come from black people. Now, black people have become observers and consumers of the culture because somehow we think that it's linked to us. But understand this, that when Geraldo says hip hop has done more damage to black people than racism, where Geraldo's missing the point is that now hip hop, and I'm distinguishing commercialized hip hop from regular hip hop, commercialized hip hop is racism. It is a form of racism. Think about that. These corporations that are promoting this music, most of them are owned by white people. White people are putting this stuff out. Even these labels where they make you think that it's black owned, a lot of them are just an imprint of a white label, of a big major white conglomerate. So even the companies where we think, oh no, it's run by a black man, it ain't run by no damn black man. It's run by a black man who's giving money by a white man to put a black face on a minstrel show. That's what a lot of the hip hop is that you're seeing on certain music videos, or seeing at even the BET Awards, or hearing on the radio. This is not coming from black people. So, Geraldo, it being the political animal he is, being the conservative he is, he's going to make this debate and make this whole argument in such a way that the final conclusion is black people, you are the ones responsible for your oppression. And can't do it. What the argument is actually saying, and Geraldo won't agree to this, but he knows he can't disagree with this, is that actually hip hop, commercialized hip hop on the radio, has been an incredibly destructive force. I don't know if it's more destructive than racism or not, because it's part of the racism package. So you can't say that the piece of racism is more destructive than all of racism itself, because this music, any music that promotes the mass murder of black people, is racist music. Any music that promotes the dehumanization and disrespect of black women is racist music. Any music that consistently tries to promote the idea to black men that they should stay high and drunk as much as possible and go have sex with every girl that moves, that's racist music. That racist music is produced primarily by whites. It's funded by whites. When you go on YouTube and you see some ratchet video of a black man popping guns at other black men, and the video has 20 million views, most black people cannot make a YouTube video have 20 million views. The video has 20 million views because some big white corporation like an Epic Records or whatever has given money to push this message throughout the world. So you look at Bobby Shmurda's situation, and that poor kid, that kid's 20 years old, he got screwed by his record label. They used him to promote gun violence among young black men. All he was doing is pop, pop, pop on every video. They could have easily directed him in a more positive direction, but they didn't. He was going to do whatever they were willing to pay him to do. And so they said, we want to pay you to go out and talk about killing niggas, and that's exactly what he did. So Bobby Shmurda's on TV talking about, I'm going to kill a nigga, kill a nigga, kill a nigga. And next thing you know, he gets caught up in a gun charge. So now his life is ruined. He's probably going to do a lot of time in prison. And even if he doesn't, anybody who knows anything about prison knows that it's such a traumatic experience that it, unfortunately, just a little time in prison is enough to ruin you for life. So Bobby Shmurda's done. And the problem is that they've got basically this revolving door of young black men who are desperate for money, that these big white corporations are coming along offering these guys money. They're using black liaisons, they're using black overseers to put a black face on their racism. But understand that the worst and most destructive forms of racism are the kinds of racism that's typically delivered with a black face on it. You understand? That's how people get away with it. That's how the people in Brooklyn got screwed when the Brooklyn Nets came into town and built that arena. They put Jay-Z's face on it. They said, he's an owner. Look at us on the billboard. He's an owner. Jay-Z owned 1/15 of 1% of that team. 1/15 of 1%. That means if you chop the team up in 1,500 pieces, he would have one. They used him to put a black face on a policy that was ultimately going to hurt poor black and brown people and get your black ass out of the area so they can build their arena and make their money. That's the game that gets played very, very often. And so you really have to understand this game so that you don't get screwed by it. So understand this. Here's the thing. So let's go back to Geraldo. Geraldo's statement: hip-hop has done more to hurt black people than racism itself. Number one, he needs to stop saying hip-hop and talk about commercialized hip-hop so we can be clear. Raw hip-hop, real hip-hop, the stuff that Chuck D, Immortal Technique, and all those guys spit out. If you want to understand real hip-hop, go watch Ice-T's documentary, The Art of Rap. He goes to the core of hip-hop. He goes back to Eric B. Rakim, Nas, Immortal Technique. If you talk to any of these guys, none of these guys are going to sign off on the crap that you hear on the radio. That's coming from white white people. They've taken something beautiful and they've bastardized it. It's not that all white people are bad, but these are racist white people. These are some money hungry, nasty bigots who've taken something that was originally black and sold it back to black people as absolute toxic garbage, the most destructive form of psychological genocide that you will ever see in your life. Like Minister Farrakhan said, and I agree with him, Mark Harris, the guy who made the great film that you really should see called Black Coffee, he made this point today when we had a conversation during an interview. He said that, well, he was quoting Farrakhan, and I believe that Farrakhan said this because I saw something similar. He said basically Farrakhan claims that one rap song can have more influence than a thousand of his lectures, and I agree. Anybody who thinks it's just music and it's just you just bopping your head to it and the lyrics have no effect on you, you're out of your mind. You've obviously never taken a psychology class. You've obviously never processed how a negative, destructive message can affect the mind of a young person who otherwise would have done something productive with their life, but ultimately has chosen to destroy their lives and the lives of other people. Now, so let's make sure when you talk about Geraldo's statement, here's where Geraldo's statement is correct. Commercialized hip hop, produced mostly by whites, does as much damage as racism. Does it do as much damage as racism? You can't really say that because that's like saying that your leg is bigger than your whole body when your leg is a part of your body. But if you look at the body of racism, commercialized hip hop is like the leg of that body. So commercialized hip hop has been incredibly destructive, and where Geraldo needs to get it right is he needs to understand that, oh boy, your statement actually backfires on you because you're actually talking about what you and other white men are promoting and endorsing and signing off on. So this idea of kind of pointing the trigger back at black people and saying this is what you're doing to cause your own demise, that's nonsense. It's ridiculous. But I'll tell you what Geraldo will never do because he's too much of a coward. He'll never go and confront the record labels. He'll never confront his wealthy friends. He'll never confront the corporations that, or look at who he works for. He works for Fox. What's Fox promoting? They're promoting the big show Empire. They're financing Empire because it's full of a bunch of nigger roles. That's what I call them, nigger roles. Roles that are specifically designed for black people that are promoting this negative imagery that we see in commercialized hip hop. So, but I guarantee you this: Geraldo claims to be a big brave man, but he'll never be brave enough to confront his own boss. So. So that's my analysis on the hip hop thing. That's my analysis on Roland Martin's interview. I think Roland did a great job, but I think that we have to get away from becoming so defensive that we somehow think we have to defend the crap that's on the radio. We don't have to defend that crap. I'm not defending Young Thug. I'm not going to hate this guy, but I'm not going to defend that message. I'm not going to defend anything that is promoting the destruction and the death of our children. You don't do that. A community does not prosper when you celebrate and glorify your own genocide. You cannot do that. And in fact, if you really care about black people, you will confront anybody you see doing this. You will let them know that we can't do this because we have to be we can't think about 2015. We got to think about 2115. What's our community going to look like in 50 years? What are our grandkids and great grandkids going to face if we are selling them up the river for $10 so that we can sing and dance to the idea of all of our young men getting high and drunk and making babies left and right and killing each other? You cannot prosper as a community if you are breathing death into your people. You must breathe life into your people. You must build. You cannot spend your time destroying. And unfortunately, a lot of this commercialized hip hop that we're hearing on the radio is built for destruction. It is taking the powerful weapon of hip hop, turning the gun around onto black people, and blowing our brains out. I almost said a cuss word. I'm so sorry for that. But you can see just how upset this makes me when I think about this. It is blowing our brains out literally because we're letting mass media owned by racist whites control and brainwash our children to the point where have been trained to celebrate our own destruction. You can't do that. That's not how people prosper. So there you go. That's my 2 cents. I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. Please take care. God bless. I'm gone. Peace.